Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really aiming to cut through all the noise, the usual hair advice. We're diving straight into some pretty high-level stuff, dermatology reviews, cosmetic science reports, the real evidence behind healthy hair, our mission, find those actionable principles, the stuff based on science that can genuinely change your hair routine. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding the actual chemistry of strong hair.
Yeah, and what's really striking when you look across all these sources is this fundamental shift in perspective. For ages, it was all about masking damage, right? Fixing the ends. But the consensus now, it's clear. Real sustainable hair health. It starts at the scalp, with the scalp barrier.
Oh, okay.
So the focus now is all about gentleness, moisture balance, and supporting that barrier. That's foundational.
So literally starting at the root of the issue.
Exactly. The latest dermatology reviews really hammer this home. Scalp barrier integrity is absolutely foundational. If that barrier is compromised, well, you're just setting yourself up for problems, inflammation, dryness. Not the best environment for growth, And it's fascinating, the dermatology expert consensus actually calls maintaining that barrier non-negotiable. It's that important for hair vitality. A weak barrier means more permeability, more sensitivity.
Right. I think most people get the idea of a skin barrier for their face, but the scalp, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
So let's make it practical. What daily habits are we talking about here? What should you be doing right now?
Okay, it really begins with the basics. Gentle handling, gentle cleansing, that's key. Use mild cleansers, gentle surfactants. You want to clean effectively, but without stripping away those essential natural oils, the lipids. And critically important, avoid mechanical trauma.
Mechanical trauma, like
The really aggressive towel drying, rubbing like crazy, or harsh brushing, especially when hair is wet and really vulnerable. Overbrushing too.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in there because I bet almost everyone does that towel rub thing, right? Until it's mostly dry. Is there solid proof that's actually damaging?
Oh, absolutely. The evidence is quite clear. That friction, especially when the hair cuticle is swollen with water, causes significant cuticle lifting. That's literally the definition of damage. Leads to breakage. When you cut down on that friction, handle gently, you preserve the follicle, you reduce split ends over time, you get fuller looking hair, it makes a difference.
That totally makes sense when you explain it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about that stripping feeling? How do you know if your barrier is already kind of messed up?
Well, science gives us a way to measure that. It's called transepidermal water loss, or TEWL.
TEW, okay.
Yeah. High TEWL means your barrier is basically leaking moisture fast. So if you step out of the shower and your scalp feels immediately tight, or maybe itchy, even burning, that's your barrier screaming, hey, too hot or too harsh.
Right, a clear signal.
The good news, though, is the data shows that using pH-appropriate cleansers, the right leave-in products consistently, well, over just 2 to 4 weeks, you can actually see measurable TEWL reduction. The barrier starts recovering.
So the goal is products that help the scalp hang on to its own moisture. Reduce that water loss. That's solid evidence for switching things up.
Okay, so let's get into the actual washing process. Starting with something super basic, but maybe overlooked. Water temperature. We all love that hot shower. But is it actually bad for the scalp?
It definitely presents a chemical challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
Lukewarm is really the sweet spot. Hot water, it just strips away that protective lipid layer. It increases TEWL, like we just discussed.
Right.
Leads to dryness, irritation, maybe even flakes. So starting with a comfortable, not hot temperature, that supports the barrier right from step one. And the product chemistry is interesting too. Common sulfate detergents, they have a really high affinity for lipids.
Meaning they grab onto oils. Exactly. They strip away those protective oils really effectively. That gives you that squeaky clean feeling. But long term, it's really not great for barrier health.
Okay, so when you're looking at the bottle, what are the gentle options? What names should you look for on the ingredient list? Things that clean well but don't, nuke your natural oils.
You want to look for sulfate-free cleansers or ones with mild surfactants. The sources specifically recommend gentle foaming agents like glucosides. Cocoa glucoside is a common one. And also cocoisothianate derivatives, something like sodium cocoyl isothianate. These are just chemically milder, less aggressive on that lipid bilayer.
And technique matters too, right? You shouldn't be scrubbing your whole hair length. Focus on the scalp.
Absolutely. The ideal technique. Focus cleansing right there on the scalp. Generate a gentle lather there, and then just let the rinse off carry the cleanser down the lengths. That's usually enough to remove light buildup on the rest of the hair without all that friction or, leaving harsh stuff on too long.
The sources mentioned a two-step rinse approach. That sounds like it minimizes friction on the lengths.
That's right. First, get the hair thoroughly wet, then apply your cleanser, lather the scalp gently, maybe 20-30 seconds, then rinse really well, letting that water flow cleanse the lengths. As for how often, well, you might alternate. Maybe a light daily cleanse if you're super active or sweaty, then a deeper cleanse once a week, especially if you have an oily scalp or use a lot of heavy styling products that cause buildup.
All right, so hair's clean. Now the focus shifts, right, to restoration, rebuilding moisture, adding strength. Let's get into the nitty-gritty ingredients. What do you need to restore not just the scalp barrier, but the hair shaft itself?
Yeah, restoring the hair shaft comes down to two main chemical players, lipids for sealing and proteins for reinforcement. Starting with that seal, you need barrier replenishing ingredients, things like ceramides, cholesterol, and also lipid-rich emollients like squalane.
Ceramides. What exactly are they doing for the hair strand?
Okay, picture the hair cuticle layers like shingles on a roof overlapping. Natural lipids, especially ceramides, they act like the mortar between those shingles. They create this continuous, water-resistant, lipophilic, meaning oil-loving seal around the strand. When that seal is intact, hair is smoother, holds moisture way better.
And that happens quickly.
It's surprisingly fast, yeah.
Yep.
Products rich in ceramides show measurable improvements in water retention, reduced TEWL, within just like 2 to 4 weeks of regular use.
So, practically speaking, conditioning is different from cleansing then. Use a lightweight conditioner, but just on lengths and ends. Keep it off the scalp.
Correct. Avoid the scalp entirely. You don't want to clog pores or weigh down the roots. And for anyone with dry or damaged hair, the sources really push for a targeted weekly hair mask. This needs both moisture infusion and sealing agents.
Okay, those terms, humectants and occlusives, let's break those down. Sounds a bit like science jargon.
They do, but the concepts are simple. Humectants are ingredients that actively pull water into the hair shaft. Think glycerin or maybe aloe-derived polyols. Those are sugar alcohols, basically, great at grabbing water.
Okay, pulls moisture in. Then what?
Then you need occlusives. These are the sealing agents. Things like shea butter or coco's nucifera oil, that's coconut oil. They create a physical barrier on the outside to stop that moisture from just escaping again.
Ah, locks it down.
Exactly. And you need to leave that mask on for a decent amount of time, like 10 to 20 minutes, so both the drawing in and the sealing off agents can actually do their jobs effectively.
Okay, that covers moisture and the barrier. What about strength? Stopping hair from snapping.
Right. For strength, you turn to hydrolyzed proteins or peptides. These are proteins broken down into tiny pieces. Think hydrolyzed keratin, silk, soy protein, small enough to actually get inside the cuticle.
And what are they doing there?
They fill in microgaps, reinforce the hair structure from the inside, improves tensile strength. This strengthening effect, though, it takes a bit longer to really see and feel. Studies suggest noticeable improvements in elasticity, less snapping, usually within 4 to 8 weeks of consistent use. But, and this is a really critical point, you have to be careful about protein overload.
Yes. I've heard about this. People hear protein for strength and just pile it on. What does protein overload actually look like or feel like?
Well, if you use too much protein without enough balancing moisture, your hair can actually become stiff, brittle. It loses its elasticity.
So instead of stretching, it just snaps.
Exactly. It can feel really dry, almost straw-like. The goal is always equilibrium. Protein adds structure, strength. Moisture adds flexibility, bounce. You need both.
So personalization is crucial here. How do you figure out how much protein your hair needs?
It really depends a lot on porosity. If you have fine, low porosity hair where the cuticle is tight, you need way less protein, less often. It can just sit on the surface and build up.
Okay.
But if you have coarse, high porosity hair, maybe damaged, cuticle lifted, it needs more conditioning overall and more frequent protein hits to kind of patch up those gaps.
So if your hair feels stiff.
Pull back on the protein products for maybe 6 weeks and really focus hard on hydration during that time.
Okay, so we've nourished, we've strengthened. Now the final piece, protection. Shielding hair from the world. And we have to start with the big one, the thing that really destroys protein long term.
Heat.
Absolutely. Rule number 1, always apply a heat protectant before styling. Look for ingredients like silicone derivatives or heat-activated polymers. They form a protective film. And here's where the science gets specific. You really need to limit high heat exposure.
How high is too high?
Try to air dry when you can. If you use tools, keep the settings below 180 degrees Celsius. That's about 350 Fahrenheit.
Wait, 350 Fahrenheit? That sounds pretty low for some tools, especially straighteners that need heat to work fast. Is that hand-HDC a hard limit? based on protein breakdown or just a general safety tip?
No, it's a pretty critical threshold according to the sources. Studies actually show that above 180 Celsius, the alpha helical structure of keratin protein, the thing that gives hair its strength and elasticity, starts to undergo measurable, irreversible damage, thermal degradation.
You're essentially cooking the protein. You are, leading to permanent loss of moisture and strength. So yeah, that 180 C350F mark is pretty important.
Wow, okay. Good to know the why. Beyond heat, what about just daily wear and tear, mechanical damage, environmental stuff?
Right. For mechanical damage, the consensus is all about gentle detangling. Start from the ends, work your way up carefully with a wide-tooth comb.
So you don't drag knots down into a bigger mess.
Precisely. Clear the path from the bottom up. And for environmental protection, the sources recommend things like UV filter sprays, basically sunscreen for your hair and hats, obviously. Also, incorporating antioxidants is pretty key. Things like vitamin E derivatives, maybe polyphenols. They help fight off free radicals from pollution, which can break down hair fibers, cause color fade, make hair look dull.
That makes sense. Okay, so bringing it all together, how do you tailor this whole routine, say based on the season?
Oh, seasonal adjustments are super important for maintaining that balance we talked about. Summer, air is usually more humid, scalp might be oilier, so you lean towards lightweight oils, more humectants. Avoid heavy, greasy stuff that builds up.
And winter?
Winter is the opposite. Air is dry, indoor heating sucks moisture out, so you need richer moisturizers, more robust occlusives to create that seal and fight off the dryness.
Okay, and for the listener at home, what's a simple way to figure out their own hair's needs without needing a lab coat?
Yeah, personalization comes down to knowing your hair type and, crucially, its porosity. The strand wetting test is a really easy at-home check.
How does that work?
Just take a single clean strand of hair, drop it in a glass of water. If it sinks right away, high porosity, it sucks up water and loses it fast, needs richer conditioning, maybe more protein if it floats for ages, low porosity, cuticles tight, resists water, needs lighter products, maybe gentle heat sometimes to help things absorb.
That's a great practical tip. Okay, finally, let's do some quick troubleshooting based on the sources. Common problems. Frizz.
Frizz. Use anti-humidity serums. Look for polymers, sealing oils. They block moisture from the air getting in.
Breakage. Lots of snapping.
Breakage usually points back to that protein-moisture balance. Dedicate like 6 to 8 weeks to adjusting it based on your porosity. Be patient.
And persistent oiliness. Scalp always feels greasy.
You might actually be overcompensating, stripping too much oil, making your scalp produce even more. Try adjusting wash frequency, maybe washing less often, and definitely switch to the lightest, non-comedogenic formulas you can find. #tag outro. So, to wrap it all up, here's a kind of stepwise plan. First, really focus on that scalp-friendly, pH-balanced cleansing routine. Give it maybe 2 weeks just to stabilize your scalp barrier. Then gently start adding conditioning, lipid restoration, focus on those ceramides, cholesterol.
Get the moisture base right first.
Exactly. Once that feels stable, then you carefully introduce protein, balancing it with moisture, using those hydrolyzed proteins for structure. And finally, integrate heat protection, environmental protection, make that your ongoing shield.
And the absolute key takeaway here seems to be patience, right? This isn't magic, it's chemistry adjusting over time. You really need to monitor results for a good 6 to 8 weeks before deciding if something works or making big changes. Give the products time to actually show results, whether it's less water loss, better stretch, or just healthier looking hair. Don't give up too early.
Absolutely. And, building on all this talk about specific ingredients and effectiveness, maybe a final thought for you to consider is the transparency and sustainability behind your choices. We've talked about balancing lipids and proteins for your hair's health, but what about the health of the planet? Look for brands that are open about their ingredients, their safety data, where things come from, ethical sourcing. Consider refillable options, maybe concentrated formulas to reduce waste. What does clean beauty really mean, not just for your scalp, but for the world around you?
Especially thinking about the resources involved in your routine, that's maybe the next deep dive for you to explore on your own.